General election update. Gordon Brown is saying there's a Tory war being raged on the poor. Labour implementing Robin Hood tax. Is Corbyn ready to stay after June? Cyber attack on NHS or the world. What is happening? And why is Bitcoin involved? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. Do you? Is Trump on his way out, or will he be chomping on? As you can see, with Donald Trump, anything happens. Knife crime issues. Is it an epidemic, or are we over sensationalizing it? Ladies and gentlemen, that's a question to be asked and for you to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us today, I got Stephen Akinsanya, a barrister with a modern approach to independent practice, with over 20 years experience at the Bar of England and Wales. Stephen works as well with young people, which he has a passion for, and a mentor as well. Stephen, welcome.
Good morning, SYLBOURNE.
Thank you so much for coming.
Nice to see you.
I mean, it's a lovely day. I saw the rain was coming out a bit earlier, but fortunately, the Lord realized that we had to be here, so it stopped.
Indeed.
Well, Stephen, there's a lot of things happening today, I mean, in politics, and the first thing I want to talk about, because that's what people are really keen about from different perspectives, the general election 2017.
Yes.
What's your perspective, sir?
Well, my view is it's the election for the Tories to lose. I think Labour are so far behind. There's uncertainty about whether Jeremy Corbyn is the man to lead this country at a most crucial time with us leaving Brexit.
Yes.
And really, to me, Theresa May has said she's the one who offers strong and stable leadership.
You got that as well?
Yes.
Everybody, strong and stable leadership.
Indeed.
Key catchwords, isn't it?
Yes, those are the buzzwords that she's used, and she's used that really to draw the electorate towards her rather than the uncertainty of Corbyn. And it's a crucial time in the country's history.
Yes.
And I really think that Labour had a great opportunity to sell something to the public, but they have a leader who many people are unsure about.
Because what I'm getting to understand, ladies and gentlemen, and Stephen, is that people are saying the manifesto of the Labour Party sells well, but the leader is not selling it well or so.
Indeed.
And there's another side point whereby people are saying it is too good to be true.
Well, I don't know so much that it's too good to be true. It's a manifesto. It was leaked, of course. It's not the final draft. But essentially, Labour had a perfect opportunity to reach out to the electorate at a time when there is this concern about the disparity between rich and poor. But unfortunately, they have a leader in whom many, including their own party members, have no confidence.
But at the same time, while we say that, I've got to look at the different side of coin, because would we say that Corbyn is somewhat like an underdog in the same category as Trump was deemed as an underdog, where Hillary Clinton had the election to lose, which she did.
Yes.
You just said a while ago that the Conservative under Theresa May have the election to lose. They're saying that Corbyn has gained 8 points recently. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Is he an underdog?
He is an underdog, but I think he's also hampered by the way that people perceive him as a leader. But as I say, Labour's policies really are attractive to many who are struggling and seeing this gap grow. And so if people take the view that Labour are in fact a proper alternative to the Conservatives, irrespective of the leader, then who knows? We've had a year now of strange election decisions. The ones in America, recently in France. And so, who knows?
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Well, Gordon Brown came out last night and was saying that the Conservative is waging war on the poor. Labour, they're saying, is implementing Robin Hood tax. What is that? What do you see the dynamics right there? Is it another way of politicizing the thing, with Gordon Brown coming out saying waging war against the poor?
Well, I think Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister, is effectively calling it as it is. There really is an issue here where the Tories, with some of their policies, with the cuts in education, the problems with housing, our immigration issues, there really are potential problems for the Tories not dealing with those issues which affect the majority of us. And so effectively...
that is the social issues, the key social issues.
Key social issues.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to running a country than the financial position of the country and the importance of the banks and the city of London, if you will.
Yeah.
The ordinary man on the street needs to know that he's got a job to go to, that he's being remunerated properly, that his children are in a decent school, schools are being funded properly. Those are the real issues, the real social issues that people want the Tories to address. And so far, all they've talked about is cuts.
And also what they're talking about as well is Brexit, which is a bigger factor to say that we've got to have a strong and stable economy. But what you're saying and what people are saying as well is that, hang on a second, I hear what you're saying, but I'm having problem feeding my children. I'm having problem with my youths not having a community center they can go to because of cuts. We have seen the advent of the knife crime, which we're going to talk about later.
Well, of course, leaving Brexit is an important issue for the country.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there are real social issues that need to be addressed. And there is a school of thought that the Tories are not addressing those issues. What they're talking about to effectively frighten the electorate is that if you leave the Brexit issue in the hands of Labour, it's going to be chaos. And what they're offering is strong and stable leadership. But that doesn't address the real issues for the everyday man, who obviously have to continue living, providing beyond Brexit.
Yes.
It's a real concern.
Now that's very true. That's really. So what do you say then are some of the key battleground, or not the key battleground, in policies? I mean, the policies will be coming out next week. I mean, Labour somewhat has signed off that leaked version, so we have seen an idea of it whereby persons over £80,000 will be taxed more taxed more, and for free parking at the hospital, VAT on persons with private insurance. And also another one which they put out is that there will be free education. Now, the question many people ask is, how are you going to pay for that?
Well, it's an important question, and what Labour says is that they have to effectively redistribute the wealth, and that means taxing the rich, increasing taxes to provide income for these various projects that need to be undertaken to ensure that there is fairness across the system for everybody.
Yeah, that's good. Well, another school of thought that people say is that whenever there's a war, whenever there's an attack somewhere, they find the money.
It's always been the way. I'm not familiar with what we spend in terms of our defence budget, but as you rightly say, when it comes to defending the country or indeed engaging in war, funds are always available for that to take place.
Yes. So ladies and gentlemen, that is just a snippet right there. Anything else you want to talk about on that particular point?
Not on that point, no.
Yeah, and also remember, ladies and gentlemen, the 22nd of March, I think 22nd of May, I believe is the last date for you to actually register to vote, and 23rd for your postal vote. That's important. And I saw recently Akala, a great rapper, actually penned a piece, very good piece, in support of Corbyn. But the most important thing for me is that I believe by what he has done, he somewhat will galvanize support for young people to get out there and vote. And being a role model with youths as well, do you see young people galvanizing towards elections at this time, 18-year-old,
Yes, I think it's more than ever, it's so important now for the young people to engage in politics. It's their future.
Yes.
Many of the people who decided for us to leave Europe are of the older generation who have certain resentments towards immigration and the way things are going, but it's not their future, it's the young people's future. And people need to realise that criticising Corbyn for the way he dresses or the fact that he's not the politician that is silky smooth,
the typical,
they should not be distracted by that. They should look to the policies to decide whether or not this man and this party really have something to offer me as an individual. Are they going to do something for me? Are they going to do something for the betterment of everybody in society? That's what people need to focus on.
That's important. Okay, now yesterday or just over a couple of days ago, we've had this NHS attack, cyber attack. I mean, that is powerful. I mean, when you hear about an attack, I saw the thing flash. No, not on my computer screen, but we got a message coming through that NHS was attacked. That is very interesting, isn't it? Regarding the NHS, one of the key battlegrounds. Is the government putting more funding in that particular area? You know, what's your thoughts about this whole?
Well, here's another example of the cuts we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I understand that the NHS computer software system had not been updated since 2000, that they're still using Windows XP,
Yes.
and that's what allowed the malware to infect the system. That can only come about by insufficient funding being put into the NHS
Yes.
for the cyber security experts who are employed to ensure that this doesn't happen.
Yes.
Here's the result.
Yes.
Cuts have affected the NHS. Of course, it wasn't a specific targeting of the NHS. It happened worldwide,
yes.
with a number of huge companies. But it just shows what happens when the eye is not kept on the ball, and we're particularly for an institution like the NHS. And we've seen the cataclysmic effect of operations being aborted,
Yes.
appointments being missed, hospital notes being lost on systems,
Yes.
no backups. It's appalling, really.
Well, one of the things what they said, a total of 48 NHS trusts were hit by the Friday's cyber attack, of which all but 6 are now back to normal. Home Secretary Amber Rudd said after having a COBRA meeting, 97% of NHS trusts were working as normal. There's no evidence of patient data was affected. Now, it is very interesting about hacking, because this is about hacking. And I was having a chat with my producer earlier this morning by saying hackers somewhat also have a positive work to be done, because some of the hackers are getting to understand are actually annoyed by this hacking, that they are offering their services to somewhat counteract it, like this group called Anonymous.
Yeah.
So as a legal specialist, can a negative have a positive?
Well,
In that respect.
I know that the apparently one of the people who was able to infiltrate this malware system was a young 22-year-old at his home in his bedroom who spotted an anomaly in the malware and was able to assist the government in bringing it down.
Yes.
I'm not going to advocate, but certainly
Yeah.
the government should be tapping into those who really understand how these systems work
Yes.
to ensure that these sorts of infiltrations of our NHS and other systems do not happen.
I think I was supposed to have another guest coming here today, Victoria, but even though she's not here, she did a contribution because I wanted her to be here to talk about the Bitcoin. Do you know about Bitcoin?
Not a great deal, only that it's an online currency which is obviously used by many criminal fraternities to transact and trade, going undetected.
Because I was wondering, why is Bitcoin being used? They would need £300 worth of Bitcoin. So she sent me this message here. She said, it's very sad what happened to the NHS, and she sympathized with all those who have been affected. This hack was done using an off-the-shelf malware, most likely purchased from the dark web, and I doubt it has any links to anything more than some amateur cyber attack trying to make a quick buck. It's fairly unusual for hackers to use this ransomware on emergency service like attacking the government. The hack doesn't seem well caught out and they are likely to get caught. Now, in regards to Bitcoin, this is what she said. The use of Bitcoin was because it's encrypted. So it's only linked to a number, not a name. Right. So we're getting an education here now. So Victoria, even though you're not here, she's contributing, which makes receiver anonymous. Also, anyone can set up a Bitcoin wallet online to send and receive payments online without needing a bank. To exchange Bitcoins in the currency, you would usually be required to prove your identity, and that's when it can be linked to a person. So are they smart or are they stupid or whatever like that?
Well, it's a form of criminality where people are trying to extort funds, in this case from the NHS. It was never going to succeed, but of course it shows the potential for how Bitcoin can be used in a criminal enterprise for those who are seeking to make money.
And the most important thing, what it's actually saying is that we are now very vulnerable, and now we're living in a paperless society. Courts now are practically paperless. We know as lawyers that when something goes wrong with the ICANN system or whatever, you're stopped.
Well, I've been involved in cases myself where there's been a breakdown in the technology. Judges have been unable to access the online system,
Yes.
and everything stops.
Now, okay, now interesting. Now let's move on quickly now to this whole thing. Is Trump chumping it, or is chumping on? Is he chumped, or is he chumping on?
Difficult one. A strange decision for him to sack James Comey.
Yeah.
Some may say that was him signing his own death warrant, but you can never tell with Donald Trump. He's someone who came in on a ticket of doing what he says he was going to do. He's a man who makes his own decisions, some of them not perhaps the best, but I believe that he potentially could have bitten off more than he can chew with this one.
Yes.
There seems to be no rhyme and reason why he would sack James Comey, particularly when they were investigating the relationship with Russia. He's effectively cast the spotlight on himself, and of course it won't be left.
But interesting what you said right there, because what I get to understand is that Hillary, they wanted Comey to be sacked. All the other persons wanted Comey to be sacked. But what they're saying now, Trump sacked him because he was being investigated directly by the Trump, you know?
Yes.
And so it's a very interesting thing. They're talking about that when Trump actually launched the missiles at, where was it, in Syria, it was another deflection.
Yes.
So are we looking, I mean, I don't know, let's cross, who knows, it could be a Nixon.
People are talking about Watergate too.
Watergate too, you know?
Yes.
So what's your verdict? Is he chumping on, or is he being chumped?
Because of the way that Donald Trump won the American election, I would not put it past him going all the way. I have the moments where I don't think he's a president who will see out his 4-year term by the very things that he says and does. But with Donald Trump, he's a phenomenon. Yes. Anything can happen with him. He seems to be able to make these decisions, have everyone fall in line. But what he perhaps doesn't understand and perhaps underestimates is the strength of the force behind the president, that he's not actually the man who calls the shots. There are those above him who can have him removed.
I always say that the president is subject to the presidency.
Indeed.
And I always say to persons, and also there's a funny thing about Donald Trump, he flourishes in adversaries. When there's problems, that's when he flourishes.
Yes.
You know? But we'll watch and see, ladies and gentlemen, how that unfolds. But finally, let's talk about a key thing. 11 young persons, well, not 11 young persons, because I checked them out recently. They were white, black, and different nationals, got stabbed.
Yes.
Over the past 14 days.
Yes.
You know? Some are saying we are over sensationalizing it by talking about it a lot, because there are lots of positive black role models, young men out there. And some are saying, no, we need to actually highlight this. What's your thoughts on this? Because you do a lot of work with young people.
Well, as you know, it's an area that I've worked in for a long time. And I'm surprised by those who say we're over-sensationalizing it, because it's not over-sensationalization to those who are burying these children, to the families. Yes, there are a number of black role models, but we need to understand that this is a real problem. And we need to do more in our communities to address these issues at grassroots level.
Yes.
Of course, we have the police who are arresting people, we have the police who are seizing weapons, but that's only the other end of the spectrum, the problem.
Yes.
We have to attack it at grassroots level, and we have to do that as a community.
Yes.
It falls on us, because unfortunately, whether we're prepared to accept it or not, a lot of the knife crime that we're seeing in our cities affects young black men.
Now, the other thing is that this Channel 5 program, which came out last week, and there's a part 2 next week and a part 3 the following week, and lots of persons are very upset about that program. I have a different perspective by saying Channel 5 is only reflecting what is out there. And I also have a different perspective by saying if we want to see a lot of positive things, let's not wait for Channel 5 to do it. We've got to do it ourselves as well.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
For those people living in the communities, many people perhaps are not aware of what is actually going on and the extent to which it's going on, and it needs to be highlighted. You cannot have the rough without the smooth.
Yes.
And so I agree with you that in order to balance that, we need to do more to show our young people of positive things that are happening in our community, but we should not be ashamed or afraid to hide the things that are happening, because it's only when we deal with them head on that we are able to confront them and deal with them and address those issues. We can't sweep it under the carpet and say it's not happening.
Yeah, because I actually contacted Channel 5 and I got a statement from them where they said the In-Gang Report, the documentary aims to show the reality of some aspects of gang life in the UK, revealing unpleasant truths about Britain gangs where selling drugs, robbery, extreme violence are a normal part of everyday life. It's an important piece of investigative television. They go further by saying there are misconceptions that Inside the Gang series predominantly features black gang members portraying the black community, negatively reinforcing stereotype. The documentary focuses on the lives of gang members of different race, background, diversity. Now what they've said also, Stephen, is that in part 2, which is coming out Sunday, and I'm not giving any airplay, but we're talking about the issues. Inside the gang, girl gangsters. Girls are increasingly being sucked into gang culture. They often behave just as brutally as the boys, fighting in packs. And part 3, Inside the Gang, drug business is a black market economy that drives gang culture. Young girls, normally we talk about young boys, but what is it about young girls as well? Is that another area as well?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, young girls are being sucked into this gang culture, this gang life, through boyfriends, siblings. And if you only need to look at social media where people post videos of girl gangs attacking other girls, prepared to carry knives, prepared to stab, and it's a real issue that affects young men and young women.
So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I think the key thing now is finding that solution from a community perspective. What are some of the work that you're doing that are solution oriented to fix this problem, Stephen?
Well, we recognize that in order to try and have a real attempt at stopping this happening, one has to go right back to grassroots level. And by that I mean going back into the schools at primary school level, because as you know, youngsters as young as 11 and 12 are carrying knives. So we go into the primary schools, we speak to the youth about what it means to carry a weapon, the implications of carrying a weapon, try and identify if there are issues at home with an older brother or sister who's involved in gang life, try and understand what's happening in the home environment, and if that's an unsteady or an unstable environment, to try and align them with people who are able to act as role models and mentors to try and change a mindset.
And lots of it does work like with the urban synergy programs, which are mentor street program, the 100 Black Men, these type of program which all need to work together to somewhat be a part of the solution.
Indeed.
Yeah. Anything else, Stephen?
Well, I think our community needs to understand that in order to really deal with these problems, we cannot shy away from it. And that people of all descriptions are being stabbed in our cities. I agree, but one has to accept that proportionally there are many young black men killing each other, teenagers, stabbing each other for ridiculous reasons, and it needs to stop.
And you know what? You just said something there, because what we hear on the news sometimes is just what we hear. Because I got to understand firsthand in my neighborhood recently that a stabbing happened, it's not on the news. Nobody knows about it. So therefore, and I remember when I used to live work somewhere in Hackney, and some people used to say that lots of shooting and stuff happened. You don't hear that on the news. So what we're hearing are just maybe portions of it.
Can I endorse that by saying, I remember being involved in a case, a murder case at the Central Criminal Court, and I was told by the investigating officer that many of the cases involving stabbings are not reported in the news. A young boy stabbed in Peckham, where his body was left in a block of flats where foxes had begun to eat the decaying body. Those things are not reported. So people need to get real that what we read in the paper perhaps is only a fraction of what's going on in our communities.
So ladies and gentlemen, it's very important that we focus and we actually recognize this epidemic, not overly sensationalized, but also we've got to also give praise to lots of wonderful black boys who are doing fantastic as well. So it's not all gone and it's not all lost, but guess what? One little leaven, what is it, can spoil the whole. What's that Proverbs? something, whatever, one thing or whatever. A chain is as weak as a chain is as strong as its weakest link. That's what I'm actually trying to say. Stephen, listen, thank you so much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on In Review. See you next time.